So let's talk about signs you're doing fine financially. As my income started to increase, I always wondered, was I doing really good, right there in the middle, or barely scraping by? And for majority of us, the best way to measure our success is through material possessions. And I actually shot a video where I talk about me actually investing in a lot of material possessions. Wasn't the best investment, so I learned my lesson from that. So it's hard for me to measure my success from material possessions because I don't really invest too much into that. So I did the next best thing. I researched the topic, and what I found out was quite interesting. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's just dig deep and rip the band-aid off. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, that's clearly not a good sign that you're in a good financial position. Majority of people are living paycheck to paycheck, 61% to be more exact. And when I seen this statistic, I was like, this can't be real, but it can be. And majority of the people I know do live paycheck to paycheck. The few that don't live paycheck to paycheck, their expenses are so low that it's almost hard for them to live paycheck to paycheck. The people that typically live paycheck to paycheck are the people that you see have all the nice things. The people that you would not assume live paycheck to paycheck because they're buying things they can't really afford, or they're in that kind of debt that is scary. It's like, I will probably never get out of this in my lifetime, no matter how much I make. And a lot of people fall under that spell of thinking like, because you have nice things, you have a lot of money. But you have to remember, it takes a lot of money to have those nice things, or a lot of debt in this case. The next sign that you're doing just fine financially is when you have money invested into assets. And this is one of the main ways to indicate that you're doing just fine financially. If you have extra money to put over into assets such as stocks, rental homes, Roth IRAs, 401ks, your retirement plan, stuff of that nature, even having money in a high yield savings account, which if you're going to use a high yield savings account, you should probably use SoFi. I have them linked below. But these are signs that you are clearly doing good financially because you have money to put in places that can make you more money. But a lot of people aren't able to do this. Like the last point I was talking about, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, there's no way you could put money into performing assets, such as all the things I just mentioned. So if you are capable of doing it, then you're clearly in a good financial position. And this one has to be my favorite sign of showing that you're financially in a good place. Actually knowing where your money is. And I know this sounds crazy. Most people will be like, it's in the bank, but that's not actually the answer that I would be looking for to that question. Because if you think about it, when you have a certain amount of money, having it in just one place is not actually good money management. You want it in multiple places. That's the right place. So this point that you're doing well financially is not really necessary, but I would say if you do know it, you're way ahead of a lot of people. And that's understanding your credit score in the 5 main points of it, which is your payment history, credit utilization, length of credit history, amount of new credit, and credit mix. And if you understood all 5, that is just icing on top of you understanding your financial status, because your credit score is extremely important for a lot of different reasons. For you getting the best interest rates whenever you're getting a car, house, stuff of that nature. I think that is a point of you doing well financially, but that does not determine whether you have a lot of money or not, because I do know business owners that have terrible credit but have a lot of money. So your credit does not reflect on how well you do financially, but having it on lock is just one of those key points that I felt that I mentioned. And if you're looking for apps or stuff of that nature to use to be able to keep up with your credit score, I like to use Experian and Credit Karma. Having a emergency fund is a major sign that you're doing well financially, because majority of Americans don't even have $1,000 in their emergency fund to pay for things that might come up, like a flat tire or a medical expense. So if you have an emergency fund of any sort, like $1,000 in your bank account that you could use for anything, you're doing pretty well financially. It doesn't sound crazy because people who have well over 1,000 is like, well, yeah, that should be a no-brainer. At a certain age, you should just have a certain amount of money. That's how some people see it. But I do understand how the odds can stack against certain individuals. So I don't want to sit here and pretend like it is not tough out there and that I can't go right back to where I started. So when I read that majority of people don't have an emergency fund of $1,000, I was like, wow, that's kind of a wake up call. But majority of people don't make enough to live a sustainable life. So with those things in play, of course, you're not going to have the best financial literacy and you're going to make very poor moves financially, putting you in positions that you don't have an emergency fund for whenever you need it. So if you are one of those Americans that have a very healthy emergency fund, you're doing pretty good financially. Nearly 22% of adult Americans claim they do not have an emergency fund. And unfortunately, I understand that far too well. The last point is if you are debt free. And let me elaborate on this a little bit, because even if you do have debt, but you use that debt to leverage for financial purposes, such as taxes, stuff of that nature, stuff to where, okay, I only have debt so I can do this, or I use debt to leverage it to make more money. That's not what I'm talking about. When I say debt free, I mean debt free of bad debt, stuff like credit card debt, car debt, stuff that won't help you out in the future, stuff that you can't use to reinvest to make more money. Because I say I'm debt free, but my businesses actually do have debt. But for anybody that understand business and understand their finances, like I was saying in the other point, you would understand is actually a reason why you would want to have debt in your business or in certain places of your life, simply for tax purposes. And if you're in that position to where you only use debt to leverage, then you're doing good financially. Always go out your way to understand your finances to the fullest ability, because once you start to understand it, it becomes a game of, okay, I can make this much from doing this, and if I put this here, I would make this much. And that's the game that you're trying to play. You don't want to be in that game where you paycheck to paycheck, I never have money to put here, or I can't go do this. And once you get stuck in that game, we call that game the rat race, and you're just in a hamster wheel running in a circle. So we want to avoid that at all costs. So understand your finances, put your money in the right places, and I'm telling you, you will be way better off. And this is not financial advice. This is just my opinion. If you're in a situation where you feel like, I just don't have the right support, nobody's trying to support what I'm trying to do, it's on you. You do have the capabilities to put yourself in position to afford all the things you want financially, but you do have to work hard, and it does take time. Like, I always think to myself, there are people out there that have the support that where they could just ask certain people for certain things and they'll get it. But then you have people who have to put 10 years of work in just to start the business of their dream, just to be a figure that they want to be. You have to learn, you have to go through things in order to tell stories. Like, I wouldn't be able to really do this channel had I not started a business, or had I not gone through building my credit, had I not got all the things I've got, had I not made the money I've made. I wouldn't be able to have this setting, I wouldn't be able to have this camera, I wouldn't be able to have this mic, because I had to invest in all these things. So if you're out there right now, because I know I was that kid that did not have the money to do this stuff, but now I'm in a position to be able to invest into my company. I'm in a position to be able to make the things that I really wanted come true. So it does take time, but with that being said, I'll see y'all on the next one.